so far away. You have everything you need set up the way you want it. Well, first of all, it's very nice to see you getting back to D.C. today. And it's good news. The Supreme Court finally stood up and limited the overreach of President Trump, the executive, with these tariffs that he imposed without any authority whatsoever. These tariffs that President Trump imposed really had no legal basis for them to be imposed, and that is exactly what the Supreme Court said. And they said that it was because the Congress has the exclusive power to tax, and the Congress has the exclusive power to withhold. So, what's so significant about the Supreme Court ruling is that it is a restoration, partially, of the rule of law, where the president overreaches and does something that the Constitution prohibits him from doing. The Supreme Court pushed him back and said all of these tariffs are illegal. So the rule of law has been upheld by the Supreme Court. I'm gratified because many of the recent Supreme Court decisions, I think, have been too much in favor of the executive branch. Second, these tariffs have done incredible damage to our country, to our economy, into our small businesses. And I've got a bailiff on the torn Grover's Northeast to speak a little bit about that. I just want to go through what's happening. The president asserted that by raising tariffs, he would create manufacturing jobs. We have lost 100,000 jobs. The president asserted that if he had these tariffs in place, it would lower the United States trade deficit. The United States trade deficit is at a record. It's never been higher. The president asserted that if we impose these tariffs, the surplus, trade surplus for China would come down. The trade surplus for China, was dumping products, has never been higher. So even according to what the president's goals were, more manufacturing jobs, it turns out less manufacturing jobs, lower trade deficit, it turns out a higher trade deficit, lower trade surplus for China, it turns out a higher trade surplus for China. On every goal that the president asserted he would achieve, he failed. Now, in addition to that, the tariffs are a tax. They're paid by our businesses and they're paid by our consumers. And the most reliable study says that these tariffs have been an additional cost of $1,700 for every American family. So, fewer jobs, higher trade deficit, higher surplus for China, higher taxes for families. These have done incredible damage. The other element of damage that has been so significant is the disruption and chaos and variability of these tariffs. But our office has done several roundtables with our small businesses here in Vermont. And one of the things that they pointed out was that when we didn't know what the tariff was going to be, we couldn't plan for a business. And it was chaotic because as we saw, the president would raise a tariff for totally arbitrary reasons. He put a tariff on Brazil because he didn't like it that there was a prosecution of the former president. He put a tariff on Switzerland because in the course of a telephone conversation with their leader, he didn't like the way she sounded. So this arbitrary abuse of authority was causing havoc for our small businesses and making a real difference in what was happening here in Vermont. It was also unconstitutional and illegal. So I am extremely pleased that the Supreme Court has issued a definitive ruling saying that these tariffs are illegal and they're over. Now, it's seen in reaction from the president because he's looking to try to find other ways to impose other arbitrary tariffs. So this tariff battle is going to continue. But the arbitrary use of these tariffs for any reason, in any amount, at any time, that is over. Thank you for this report. I also just want to introduce Caleb Latorno from Grover's North. Caleb met in the course of having roundtables, and he's got an extraordinary business he can tell you about, and he can tell you just what the incredible impact these tariffs were on his business, both the cost as a result of the tariffs and how it affected sales. Caleb?
Okay. We were founded in 1979. We sell Land Rover parts, so new parts for old automobiles, sort of a niche business in little western Vermont. We're employee-owned, and the tariffs have had a really significant impact. Our sales are down 30%, and we've had to dramatically increase our pricing. Of course, the tariffs just get passed along to the consumer, and unfortunately, we've had our first layoffs in company history. Being founded in 1979, our staff's got about 20% smaller, as our business has reduced about 30% in sales revenue over the time for us. And we're really appreciative that the Supreme Court has upheld the rule of law and the power to tax should be with Congress. We understand the President has some new tariffs coming in and working with some temporary FICA on to get these reversed. It's been a very difficult time to be an importer, and unfortunately, we just don't make the things in the U.S. anymore. So adding a tariff isn't going to immediately bring back manufacturing to the U.S. Most of what we're buying just isn't available locally, and it's just a tax on the American consumer. We all need to drive, we need parts to keep our automobiles on the road. It's been very difficult for us in this free trade environment.
Thank you. Any questions? By the way, this is an amazing business. You know those Land Rovers? Just an amazing thing. He like Land Rovers, and he started this business. And everybody around who has a Land Rover loves it. Can't figure out how to get it fixed. They go to this guy. Isn't that amazing? In little old Western Vermont, in mighty Western Vermont. That's so cool.
Yeah, probably more for Kayla. If President Trump is imposing these temporary tariffs and he's trying to find a legal workaround to the Supreme Court, how much uncertainty remains with your business and the people that you do business with?
There's an incredible amount of uncertainty. We don't know until 2 weeks after, 3 weeks after we receive goods what the actual tariffs were. We supply the harmonized tariff schedule, the HTS code, country of origin, and the value. And oftentimes we've sold the goods already before we found out, what the tariff value was, and perhaps at a loss. It's extremely difficult. You can't run a business, you can't plan when you don't know what the tariff rates are going to be. And often it comes down to the customs agent who's doing the actual declaration. So there's an incredible amount of inconsistency. Even the government's websites won't tell you exactly what the tariff amounts are going to be.
And do you expect this to continue now, even though the Supreme Court has said what was imposed was illegal, and now Trump is saying no, 15% on everything?
Well, it's definitely a victory, but yeah, the chaos doesn't continue, and this just impacts some of the tariffs, right? There's still the 50% steel and aluminum, which was 25% before they started calling him taco or whatever that was, and then he decided, okay, 50%. 25% automobile parts. So this is just some of the tariffs, but we're encouraged that it's headed in the right direction, and the courts are doing playing an appropriate role.
By the way, I believe he's entitled to a refund. These tariffs are illegal, so the companies are entitled to be refunded. And the administration is, I heard, President Trump was saying that's not how it's going to work out. The reality is you had to pay these online, so they can be refunded online. There's no excuse for the Treasury not to refund
Well, where do you think the money has gone? Some people have called tariffs a huge grift by the president.
You know, we don't know. I mean, there's an enormous abuse of presidential power here. The tariffs are a really good example. And, you know, one of the ironies here is the tariffs really hurt our Midwest farmers as well. And now President Trump, because it destroyed their market in China. And that market, they used to sell their soybeans to China. And now Chinese buy from Brazil. And the president said, let's use some of the tariff money to make up for what the farmers lost. So literally, my crop farmers in Iowa and Nebraska, they don't want the government hand up. They want to be able to solve the problem. And also, you saw what the president did in Venezuela. He's taking over their oil, and that money is in Qatar. We have no idea where that money is. We don't know who's making it. But the bottom line here is the tariffs are really, the government had no right to collect, and they have immediate obligation on funding. And this is devastating. You have this company, his dad started, a unique business in Western Vermont, really good workers and employees, a niche market. They created it, and they, for the first time, had to let folks off. That is a wrenching decision for a family business. And I want this tariff money to come back so we can get those employees back and get their business going.
On the topic of getting refunds back for either the business or the consumer, what are you doing on the state level to do that? How can you advocate for that?
Well, it's a federal responsibility because the feds took the money and they got rid of it. And I'll be working with my colleagues to get those refunds processed as quickly as possible. Yes, sir.
I wondered, you mentioned the kind of chaotic atmosphere being one of the problems here. I wondered how this sort of continued chaos with this latest sort of 10 and then 15% tariff might be affecting kind of the cultural friction that seems to be impacting Vermont's relationship with Canada, for example, at the northern border.
First of all, there's two things that can. One, the insults from the president, the 51st, the governor, that has done real damage. And we want to repair it. I think our Canadian friends know how much Vermont values their friendship and our relationship. But they've seen arbitrary action on the part of President Trump in the banking operations. Prime Minister Carney spoke about the rupture, and regrettably, President Trump did. But it won't heal unless we start treating Canada as a valuable business partner that it always has been. So that disruption continues.
I was just one follow-up there. It does seem like, at least in some areas, the duties on Canada will be lower going forward than they have been in the past. Are you able to speak at all about any changes in particular that you see as being potentially positive for Vermont in there?
Well, what's good for Vermont is that these tariffs, the arbitrary ones, the IEPA tariffs, and I think that's going to give a little bit more stability to those centers for folks like brokers and all. I also think that the USMCA, the U.S. and Mexico, the Canada trade agreement is extremely important as that will continue. That's a negotiation that we have to stabilize things.
Can you take an off topic?
Yeah, we can do.
Um,
You, especially.
I'm
Caleb, I want to thank you. I visited a lot of businesses, and this is an example. I mean, it's amazing. This guy started this. So there's a lot of businesses like that. Enterprising Vermonters figured something out. We moved from something very small to something very large. It became a place where local Vermonters got good jobs, trained, improved, and had this unique business. And the fact that the administration would take actions that are so arbitrary and do so much harm to so many good businesses like Caleb's all around
So obviously we know that there's a military buildup in the area around Iran. The F-35s from Burlington are there. What are you hearing in DC about any sort of potential action that could occur in the near or far future there?
I'm extremely concerned about this military buildup and the indication President Trump is seriously contemplating a major military action without any effort to get. The president cannot go to war on his own. It takes an act of Congress. Congress has too much in recent history been capitulating and not asserting the War Powers Act. I oppose any military action by the president in Iran, especially on this massive scale, that does without him coming to Congress and seeking the War Powers Authorization.
If he does go to Congress, do you think Congress would approve an action by him in Iran?
I would not. I mean, what he's talking about is regime change. The point is, he would have to come and make his case to the American people. He doesn't know how to do that. So Iran is a horrible regime. They've killed thousands of their own protesting citizens. It's a terrible, terrible regime. But what is the plan here that the president is talking about that will give us confidence that it will be good for our national security, let alone be open to bad situation?
Senator, of course, the State of the Union address should be coming out very soon. What are you hoping to see from that?
From the State of the Union? Who knows? Seriously. I mean, the president is apparently in a state of whitening anger about what the Supreme Court did. And in an unprecedented way, he lashed out at the judges who made the decision he didn't like. Those judges are going to be sitting in the front rows at the State of the Union tomorrow night. Is the president going to do something I would regard as terribly inappropriate and attack the judiciary because they did their job? So, you know, I went to the State of the Union last year, and it was a rambling speech. But, you know, bottom line here, these times are hard for our small businesses, for our working families. Affordability is a big issue. You know, we're seeing access to health care free. The premium tax credits have expired. That's increasing premiums enormously for a lot of small businesses and everyday families. You know, what I'd like to see him address those affordability issues. I'd like him to talk about housing. I'd like him to talk about our small businesses. I'd like him to talk about how we're going to get health care system that's affordable and sustainable. So that's what I'd like to see, but, you know, I'm not counting.
Just a follow-up, I know Becca Ballin has come out and she's planning on boycotting. Do you plan on doing the same at all?
I'm bringing a guest from Vermont who's been impacted by the loss of the premium tax credits, Melissa Black. She is in small business. She purchased her health care through the exchange, and I want to highlight through her how harmful the expiration of those tax credits has been.
Do you approve the?
Two questions about the airport. You know, DHS shut down. What's the latest with that?
The latest is there's ongoing negotiations to try to rein in the incredibly abusive practices of ICE. You know, ICE should be subject to the same standards of law enforcement that the Burlington Police Department is, that the Vermont State Police are, that other law enforcement agencies are. And we've made very concrete demands about practices that require ICE to be conducting itself according to those rules. And those are ongoing negotiations. My view is that we should separate out ICE and Customs and Border Patrol and fund TSA, fund the Coast Guard, and fund FEMA.
And I know you're traveling today right after this. I know there's been a massive snowstorm right below us. Is there any impact to your travel today?
thanks to the great people here at Burlington Airport, no, at least so far, and I always say that.
Final question for me if you have time. In regards to traveling, of course, there's a lot of things going on over in Mexico with a lot of tourism. Have you heard any rumors or potential Vermonters being stuck right now?
Rumors and what?
In terms of Vermonters being stuck in Mexico during the whole protest.
I've not heard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all very much, and especially when you went back to work. Caleb, thank you so much, really, and speak for all so many Vermont businesses. You want to get this, start. Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.